Game start.
Hey, and welcome to the very first official episode of the Average Joe Nerdcast podcast. Rolls off the tongue better than I expected, right? And you could probably hear it. I'm pretty stoked to be here. Oh, and by the way, I'm Nate, one half of the wider Average Joe network. I run the Chill Corner and Nerd Break, and occasionally team up with my partner for our dual reviews. So yeah, we've been around a minute, just nerding out in different corners of the internet. Now you might be asking yourself, what's the deal with this show? Well, here's the thing. Not everyone has time to sit down and read a big, long blog post. We all have busy lives. A lot of us are old enough to have kids now. Some of us are juggling work, family, side hustles, and yeah, I know some of you definitely do have time. I see you scrolling TikTok for 45 minutes straight. Don't even lie. As much as I love writing deep dive editorials, this podcast, this is going to be different. More of a conversation, just me nerding out with you about the stuff that shaped us. Or maybe it's just an excuse to inflate my ego and make you listen to me ramble. Granted, no one's holding a gun to your head and forcing you to listen. But man, I'd sure appreciate it if you did. Oh, and if someone is holding a gun to your head, blink twice. Did you blink? I missed it. Anyway, again, welcome to the Average Joe Nerdcast, where we're celebrating the games, movies, and memories that made us who we are. And for our first episode, we're going big, like hopping in the Wayback Machine big. We're rolling the clocks back to the year 2001, when a little green box showed up in our living rooms and tried to go toe-to-toe with PlayStation and Nintendo. And if you guessed, yep, we're talking about Halo Combat Evolved. But before we get to launch day, let's rewind even further and give you a little history on the scrappy little indie studio called Bungie. Now, the story of Bungie is just as wild as anything they put in their games, and it all starts in the year 1991 with a math major by the name of Alex Seropian at the University of Chicago. So this guy, Alex, he graduates and doesn't feel like getting a real job. So instead, he says, you know what? I'm just going to start a game company. And boom, Bungie Software Products Corporation is born out of his apartment. Very official, very corporate. And his first game, a Pong clone called Gnop. Yeah, it was just Pong spelled backwards. He gave it away for free, but he sold the source code for just $15. 15. Bungie's origin story is basically Pong, but make it hustle. Now fast forward. Alex meets this other student, Jason Jones, in an AI class. Jason's working on this dungeon RPG called Minotaur. They team up. Alex handles the packaging and the hype. Jason cranks the code. And in 1992, they release Minotaur, the Labyrinths of Crete. Multiplayer over Apple Talk, and if you're scratching your head, Apple Talk was like caveman Wi-Fi. You thought split screen was rough? Try networking Max in 92. So Minotaur sells around 2,500 copies, which was huge for two guys working out of an apartment. Then in 93, Bungie drops Pathways into Darkness, and this is the game that starts turning heads. It's a moody, first-person adventure on the Mac. Think Indiana Jones meets Doom, but with some puzzles. It moves 20,000 units, which is basically Bungie going from dudes in an apartment to, hey, maybe we should get an actual office. They even hire their first PR guy, Doug Zartman, who later becomes the voice of Bungie's trademark humor. You know, all those cheeky, sarcastic lines in Bungie game manuals? Yeah, we can all thank Doug for that. But the big breakthrough, Marathon, in 94. Jason Jones builds this killer 3D engine, and suddenly, the Mac has its answer to Doom. Full 3D graphics, real sci-fi storytelling. and multiplayer that had Mac nerds linking machines like their lives depended on it. And by 95, it sells 150,000 copies, which, for perspective, is like every Mac gamer in the 90s buying it twice. And Bungie's on a roll. Next comes Myth, The Fallen Lords, in 1997, a gritty, real-time tactics game where the world is dark, everyone dies horribly, and explosions send little bodies flying across the map. It was both brutal and brilliant. And for the first time, Bungie wasn't just the Mac shooter guys. They were making cross-platform strategy games and scooping up awards left and right. So by the time the late 90s roll around, Bungie has a rep. Clever, ambitious, kind of scrappy. And then they start cooking up something new. A sci-fi shooter with vehicles and with AI that didn't just run at you like idiots. So after carving out their reputation with Pathways into Darkness, Marathon, and Myth, Bungie was finally ready to step out of the shadows and hit the big stage. Enter Macworld 1999. And if you've never heard of Macworld, here's the quick breakdown. Think Comic-Con for Apple nerds. Except instead of cosplayers and movie trailers, you've got Steve Jobs in his turtleneck showing off the latest shiny thing to make Mac users feel cooler than the rest of us. So Jobs is up there doing his thing. And behind him, Bungie rolls out what they've been cooking. A little project called Halo. Now here's the kicker. Halo at that time wasn't even a first-person shooter. No, it was a third-person shooter being built exclusively for Mac. Now imagine that. Our future Xbox poster child was originally a Mac exclusive. Nobody in that audience had a clue that in just a couple of years, this game would jump ship and basically become the face of Microsoft's Xbox. But if you were a Mac gamer in 99, this was your moment. Bungie already had the Marathon street cred, basically the Mac's answer to Doom. They had Myth, which gave them a cult following in the strategy crowd. And now, here was this sci-fi shooter with vehicles, physics, and AI that looked way ahead of its time. For Bungie, Macworld was the flex. Hey world, we're not just a quirky little studio anymore. We're building the future. So when Microsoft swooped in during June 2000 and bought Bungie outright, it was fucking chaos. The forums online melted down. Bungie even staged a fake funeral for their lost independence. But in the end, Halo became an Xbox exclusive. And that decision might have saved Microsoft's entire console experiment. All right, now we're caught up. It's November 2001. The original Xbox is about to launch, and honestly, the odds were stacked against it. PlayStation 2 was already dominating. Nintendo also had its diehard fans. Sega was bowing out with the Dreamcast. And then here comes Microsoft with this big, heavy console and a controller so massive, we all literally called it the Duke. For my younger listeners, picture the current Xbox controller and just triple its size. I may be exaggerating a little, but it was pretty big. And what sold that system? It wasn't the DVD player. It wasn't the glowing green startup screen. It was Halo. And yes, my younger listeners, there was a time before everything went all digital where we used these discs called DVDs. And before that, we had VHS tapes. And instead of having everything you could ever want to watch available at a push of a button, we went to these video rental places, picked out a few things, and made a weekend event out of it. Man, what a time to be alive. Halo drops November 15th, 2001 as a launch title. And it didn't just put Xbox on the map. It was the goddamn map. Blood Gulch, Sidewinder, Hang 'em High. Those weren't just levels. They were battlegrounds for an entire generation of console players. Now, before Halo, console shooters could feel clunky. After Halo, they were viable. Dual stick controls became the standard. Regenerating shields replaced medkits. LAN parties became all-night rituals where you drag 4 TVs into a basement, link 4 Xboxes, and suddenly you had 16-player chaos. And if you're wondering, yes, we literally carried giant box TVs into basements. We didn't have flat screens. There was no Wi-Fi, just pure sweat, pizza grease, and extension cords. I remember the first LAN party I ever went to. We had 4 Xboxes, 16 of us, and the living room looked like a Radio Shack had exploded. Someone always brought the quote-unquote good TV, someone always forgot their controller, and guaranteed someone would rage quit because their little brother kept screen peeking. For Gen Z, that's when you look at the other player's corner of the split screen to find where they're hiding. Basically, it was the analog version of wall hacks. And speaking of split screen, I love online gaming. I really do. But there was something purely communal about split screen gaming. Something I think that's sorely missed these days. Not to turn into the old man screaming at the clouds, but as much as we are all connected nowadays, I can't help but feel as though we're more separated than ever. Maybe that's some food for thought. Halo wasn't just a game, it was a phenomenon. By 2005, over 5 million copies had sold. The Xbox sold because of Halo. Full stop. Now let's pull back the curtain and talk about how Halo came to be. Development on Halo actually started in 1997. Originally, it was an RTS. Think Halo Wars before it was ever a thing. Then it shifted into the third-person action game that was shown off at Macworld. And finally, Bungie had a realization. They said, no, this kind of works better as an FPS. And what pushed it there? The vehicles and the physics. Bungie loved how it felt to drive warthogs and mess within the sandbox. And once they put the camera behind the visor, pure fucking magic. If you know, you know. The first time you saw a warthog do a backflip from a grenade toss, that was when you realized physics could be fun. Internally, Halo's testbed was called B30. Out of that sandbox came one of the most famous missions in the entire game, the Silent Cartographer. And I've got to tell you, it's the mission that got me hooked on Halo to begin with. I grew up a PlayStation kid. My best friend at the time had an Xbox, and after seeing it during a weekend hang, I made him stop his solo progress and boot it back up in co-op. We ran the entire campaign in one go after that. And that mission, it's textbook Halo. Open hub, loop objectives, Marines, Covenant, and vehicles all colliding. Bungie knew they had the formula. Now, Bungie had to cut a lot. Their dream was bigger. Open world maps, online multiplayer. But deadlines are a very real thing. And Xbox Live wasn't even ready at that point. So they reused spaces with new nav queues. They rebuilt multiplayer late in development and cut online altogether. And still, what shipped became legendary. And here's Bungie's magic formula. 30 seconds of fun. Designer Jamie Griesemer said it best. Every encounter is grenade, gunfire, melee. That's the loop. But the trick? Bungie constantly reframes that loop so it always feels fresh. That's also where the golden triangle comes in: guns, grenades, melee. It's simple, it's intuitive, and man, it worked. Layer in rechargeable shields over a finite health bar, the 2 weapon carry limit, and grenades always ready. And suddenly, Halo felt perfectly tuned for a console controller. Vehicles sealed the deal too. Hop into a Warthog and the camera smoothly shifts into third person so you don't lose spatial awareness. Pair that with smart AI, Marines cracking jokes or panicking, Covenant grunts screaming or charging, the elites coordinating, and suddenly every battle feels alive. Does anyone else remember if you stuck a grunt with a plasma grenade, it would scream, "Ah, not again!" It's as funny now as it was in 2001. And the campaign is a ride, and each mission has a flavor. The Pillar of Autumn drops you into chaos, then leads straight into Halo, where you first see that ring world vista. And back then, seeing that for the very first time, it was jaw-dropping. Up to then, we'd seen nothing like it. The Silent Cartographer is peak Halo, open hub, objective loops, combined arms chaos, and man, it still sings today. 343 Guilty Spark flips the tone. You stumble through a swamp and meet the Flood for the very first time, and suddenly, the game shifts into survival horror. And like I said, I grew up a PlayStation kid, and the original Resident Evil trilogy, that was my jam. Capcom nailed survival horror back then, and honestly, I credit those games with planting my lifelong love for zombies. At the time, I grew up watching a ton of science fiction with my dad, too. Stuff like The Thing, Starship Troopers, Aliens, all that gooey, terrifying space bug body horror goodness. So when Halo dropped the Flood on me, holy shit. It was like The Thing had a baby with zombies, a sci-fi nerd's dream, or nightmare depending on who you ask. Disturbing body horror, pseudo-zombies, parasite swarms crawling over everything, and the beginning of every Halo fan's late night theorizing on what exactly the Flood was. Sign me up. Or, depending on how you handled that first reveal, sign me out and pass me the nightlight. It completely shifted the tone of the game. One minute you're a badass Spartan mowing through Covenant, the next you're in a survival horror scenario. Bungie didn't just surprise players, they traumatized us in the best possible way. Then there's the library. Fans either love it or you hate it. Endless waves of flood, narrow corridors. It's infamous. And I won't even get started on the library. Anyone else go through multiple controllers because whoever they were running co-op with kept dying and restarting the checkpoint? Pain shared is pain remembered, my friends. And yes, Josh, 24 years later, and I'm still pissed. And finally, the Maw and the Warthog escape. You've mastered the controls, and Bungie cashes it in with a cinematic victory lap that's pure adrenaline. Split screen and system link let you hook up to 16 players. Dragging TVs, daisy chaining Ethernet cables, stacking pizza boxes. It was a cultural ritual. You had your sniper gods, your shotgun maniacs, and the guy who swore he was just testing the vehicle physics while running you over with a ghost. And if you were there, you remember the glow of CRTs, the sound of cans cracking, and the never-ending accusations of screen peeking. And here's the thing. Back then, meeting up with our friends and system linking to play Halo, that was our church. The friendships forged on those battlegrounds, that was our scripture. We played more Halo in school than the actual schoolwork we were supposed to be doing. I'm not even kidding. We used to haul our Xboxes into science class system link them, and run tournaments for an hour. And yeah, the teacher was right there with us. Shout out to Mr. Norman, the greatest science teacher of all time. Now let's take a quick break and do a quick top 3 Halo CE weapon rundown. At number 3, you've got the rocket launcher. 2 shots, 2 guaranteed kills, bonus points if you wipe out half your own team in the process. At number 2, the sniper rifle. 4 shots per mag, iconic sound, and the beginning of no-scoping trash talk. And can you guess what's at number 1? If you said the Magnum, yeah, you're right. The infamous M6D. It was absurd. One-shot headshots, perfect accuracy, scoped-in zoom. It was total chaos. You could run the entire game and never use another weapon. Bungie co-founder Jason Jones even takes the blame for it. Think of it like the Fortnite pump shotgun, except Bungie swears they really didn't mean to make it that OP. So which were you? Were you the pistol guy, the sniper, or the rocket launcher troll? Or were you just there for the ride?
I think we're just getting started.
And then there's Blood Gulch. The map's so good, they remade it multiple times across Halo history. Coagulation, Valhalla, Hemorrhage. If you hear
Capture the flag,
chances are your brain still sees that canyon. Hell, Rooster Teeth even kicked off one of the most famous machinimas set within Blood Gulch. Then there's the soundtrack. Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore gave us that monk chant layered with pounding war drums. It became Halo's identity. And just to prove how iconic and special that music is, go literally anywhere where people gather and just vocalize those first few monk chants. I can almost guarantee everyone will turn their heads. Not because some weirdo is wandering their local mall chanting like an idiot, but because they remember. Whether they still game to this day or not, it's burned collectively into our DNA. And it wasn't just the theme. The way the music swelled during firefights, then dropped back into calm exploration. It glued the whole experience together. Halo CE scored a 97 on Metacritic, sold over 5 million copies, and became the killer app that justified Xbox existing in the first place. Without Halo, there's no Xbox 360, no Xbox Live, no Master Chief memes, and honestly, no modern FPS culture. And here's the what if to chew on. What if Halo hadn't existed? Would Xbox have survived the console wars of the early 2000s? Would Call of Duty and Destiny still look the same? Or would someone else have filled the void? I'll leave that one for you to ponder. So yeah, Halo Combat Evolved didn't just evolve shooters, it evolved gaming culture. And for a launch title from a relatively small development team, that's insane. But times were different then. Community, innovation, and fun above all were at the forefront of gaming. And Halo led the charge, reshaping the entire industry. But here's the thing. As big as that was, the sequel, that's where everything went fucking nuclear. But that's going to do it for this first episode of the Average Joe Nerdcast. Thanks for rolling with me on this trip back to 2001. Next time, we'll be talking about Halo 2.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
And how it changed everything again with online play and one of the best marketing campaigns of all time. Until then, stay gold, nerd bold.
Game over.